To a live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I am Mike Kadlick, joined once again by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. We missed you last night, Barth, as Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit filled in on Patriots postgame. So I'm here breaking down the disaster class that was Patriots versus Raiders last night. But we need to get your reaction. Patriots obviously lose 30-24. I don't really need to set it up anymore, because let's get just right into what the hell happened, especially on that last play. We need your unfiltered thoughts and rant on what the hell that was.
Well, it's the whole game, and it's why this team now isn't going to make the playoffs, and it's why this team is in such a weird position, and it's why this offseason there's going to be so much focus at high levels of the organization. This is a team that isn't prepared. This is a team that just isn't ready to play NFL football games. And you look at various stages throughout the game, whether it be that red zone sequence early in the second quarter, which, by the way, to me, is the most damning part of that game. We'll talk about what happened at the end, and that's inexcusable. But the 4 plays from the 2-yard line, and 7 plays from the 2-yard line, there's no reason that should play out the way it did in an NFL game. To not being able to tell when everybody's lined up for a punt. Players can't line up on offense. They don't have the play in. Having to burn timeouts. Situational football. This is stuff that, all right, when we get to the spring, right? And even the first couple days of training camp, and you hear us throwing out terms like install period and teaching period, right? Remember, Bill Belichick talks about that. He says, it's still the teaching period. The competition period doesn't begin, for a couple of whatever. This is what they're installing. This is what they're teaching.
Right.
How the operational element of it, how the play gets in, how the plays are called, what the play calls are, where everybody lines up, like things like that, how to go hurry up, how they want you to handle situational situations. This is day one stuff. This is stuff that they work on in May, in the spring. We are now a week away from Christmas. And it's not like it's been 1 or 2 here or there. Look, no team's perfect. Everybody has mental lapses during the season. But it's week after week after week of this stuff that should have been put in the books months ago. And there's probably a number of reasons for that. I don't think it's just one thing. They're on their 4th offense, really, in the last 5 or 6 months. The offensive coaching staff doesn't have a ton of experience on that side of the ball. At least the guys are high up in it.
Right.
They've had guys come in and out with injuries. So it's a number of things, but it's just for a team that always hang its hat on succeeding in the margins. That was some just bad margin football. There's no other way to put it. So we can get into the specifics, but if it's not fixed now, it would be really easy to sit here and say they got 3 games left. If they win out, they're in, right? They could still win out. They could still make the playoffs, which is the case. They still control their own destiny. It'd be real easy to sit here and say that. And people who know this show know me. I'm not somebody who just goes to the negative. I'm trying to find the silver lining in these things. But if they can't get this fixed, and there's no reason to think if they haven't gotten it fixed for the last 5 months, they're going to get it fixed for these next 3 weeks. They're not going to beat these teams. These are 3 teams that are much better than the Raiders. Right. And if you make these kind of mistakes against them, it's going to end ugly.
Well, that's sort of where, I think we talked about it last episode where at some point it was like, okay, let's just ride this wave out and see what happens. And maybe it'll fix itself and maybe things will just start to become more comfortable with the guys on offense mixed with Matt Patricia. At this point, I'm at the point where, okay, something has to change now because it's that bad. And I mean, granted, it should have changed before today because they did control their own destiny. This was a winnable game that they still had a chance to win at the end. And because of everything that trickles down from, honestly, this coaching staff and the decisions that Belichick has made with these guys in this room, it basically bubbled over into what happened last night. Again, if we want to get into the offense, I know we'll touch on Chandler Jones, but I mean, really, there is a butterfly effect to what happened last night, right? Because Chandler Jones' play isn't the only story, because the offense, they were bad again. Mac Jones completes less than 50% of his passes for only 100.
Worst game of his career. Worst game of his career. Inexcusable.
And I try and defend Mac a lot. I do it on this show. I do it on Twitter. I do it through my writing on CLNS Media. And again, I have a hard time blaming it strictly on him because of the situation around him. But at some point, you also have to kind of be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I and he does this. He takes the blame for different types of things, but he wasn't good. And we talk about that drive on the goal line where they call the timeout, which bad management by Bill Belichick in that situation. But then the 4th and 1 where Max scores on the QB sneak, that was on him because his guys aren't set. He has to make sure his guys are set. So that's a tough situation there for Mac as well. And again, like you said, just one of the worst games of his career to the date.
Yeah, this was, and we talked about this last week, that I like seeing Mac Jones play with passion, and I stand by that.
Right.
But you can't let that impact your play on the field. You have to use that passion to help you, not hurt you. And this was the first time I thought it got in his way. And that's the knock for me. I don't blame him for being frustrated. And most quarterbacks in that situation are set up to fail, are going to fail. But he let it get to him. This was the first time I really thought he let it get to him. But I do want to go through that sequence. Like, and actually, before we go through the sequence, let me ask you this, because it's something me and Evan used to argue about. And this is one of the big picture things that we're actually on very different sides of. And I think this game is a perfect case for my argument. I do not believe any football game ever in the history of the sport, college, pro, high school, whatever, no football game has ever been definitively won or lost on one play. Correct. I truly believe that. So you're with me on this.
Yeah, I am.
This game was a perfect example of that. And you can look at the last play of the game all you want. Terrible play. Mm-hmm. You can look at the Keelan Cole call all you want. Terrible call. Awful call. And we'll get to that.
And the fact that there are still people on Twitter saying that he was inbounds is absolutely insane.
Yeah, those are the people Elon Musk needs to kick off. Seriously. Yeah. That should be against the rules. Right. But neither of those, as bad as those were,
right,
and as much as the Patriots could have done, the number one way to prevent those situations, to not have it be in the referee's hands or not have it come down to some BS lateral, is to not let it get to that point in the first place. And the number one point I look at in a game where they could have done something to avoid those situations is that sequence at the beginning of the second quarter. And they're driving the ball down, and they did a really good drive moving down the field.
Yep.
1st and goal from the 2, run it to Ramondre for 1 yard. Fine. Great. That's what they should be doing. 2nd and 1, incomplete pass. Mac Jones sails Jonnu Smith, and he kind of gives up on his route. Then they have to burn a timeout.
Not a great throw either, though. Not a great throw either.
Well, no, Max sailed the pass, but I thought Jonnu could have been a little more competitive. They both screwed up.
Yeah, correct.
Then you call a timeout with 12 minutes to go in the second quarter. 2nd and 1 from the 1. 2nd and goal from the 1. Look,
the full play clock, inexcusable in my opinion.
If you have to, well, here's the thing. If you have to call a timeout to get it right, like if they punch it in, whatever. Okay, you use the timeout, and you made it count, right? But they call a timeout. They then run they get a touchdown. Or sorry, I have this all mixed up.
No, you're good.
They throw
Slow it down. We're all right.
They throw the incomplete pass to Jonnu. Then Mac makes a good throw to Jacoby Myers. Great catch in the back corner of the end zone. But the coaching staff calls a timeout. And Bill says it wasn't lined up right. Well, clearly it was.
It looked lined up to me. They scored a freaking touchdown, right?
What that tells me is there is disconnect between Bill Belichick and the offensive brain trust. That they both, what Bill thinks it should look like and what Matt Patricia and Joe Judge think it should look like is two different things. And again, that's something you sort out in the spring. That's not something you're sorting out on December 18th. Shouldn't be. So then they burn the timeout. They've burned that timeout. And again, fine, you come back and you score. Instead, they run this really weird play where they go to Nelson Aguilar on a quick slant, which in itself, fine. But they motioned, was it Pierre Strong? I don't remember exactly who it was.
I think this was when they were using 21 and they were using him as that wide receiver.
Right, which I don't hate as a concept.
Me either.
But if you're running a quick slant, you don't motion somebody and run somebody right underneath that because it totally throws off the timing and rhythm of the play. That is a snap, get the ball and throw. And now you've got essentially your own guy in coverage taking away that passing lane. So I don't know if Strong maybe didn't know the play and ran the wrong way or if it was just a poor design. But that's a wasted play. You burned that right on 3rd and 1. Then they have to call another timeout. So now there's 2 on this sequence.
Just ridiculous.
4th, Mac's all riled up. And on one hand, I get it. He's frustrated. but you got to settle down, as I do here. You're seeing me get worked up now. Like I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. He gets all worked up. He snaps the ball too early. Jonnu Smith's not set. And they back it up and they kick the field goal. That's a 4-point swing. They have those 4 extra points. That Keelan Cole touchdown really doesn't mean much. I guess the Raiders can go and get a field goal, but you're not lobbing the ball around at the end of the game. You're kneeling it out.
Yep.
That sequence, more than anything else, cost the Patriots that game. Because they had a chance to take control of that game, take command early.
Yep.
And by the way, they showed the stat on TV, and this is when I knew the Patriots weren't going to score. I think they showed it after Stevenson got from the 2 to the 1 on that first play. On their previous 14 drives, where the other team had first and goal from inside the 5, the Raiders had allowed a touchdown. Not points, not touchdown or field goal, touchdown. 14 in a row in that situation. But the Patriots, who've run the 3rd fewest plays from inside the 5 of any team in the league, looked out of sorts down there. They did not look ready for that situation. I'm the guy who's been sitting here saying they're using Ramondre Stevenson too much. I'm the guy who's been sitting here saying that they're overusing him. 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, use him.
Right.
Use him. He's a bully ball back. Use him. The fact that they threw the ball, they went to shotgun, and I don't know what Bill's talking about with they had to go shotgun because Hunter Henry was out of the game. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me unless they felt they needed. The only thing I could think of is they're going to line Hunter Henry up at fullback. But have a tackle do it then.
Have they ever done that? I mean, not necessarily out of a run set. They're doing it in this passing stuff.
Saying,
but
you have nobody else who can step into whatever role Hunter, like you don't have a tackle eligible or somebody. There's no excuse not to run the ball there. None. And there's no excuse for it to look that discombobulated. That I know I've said it a couple times. I'm going to keep saying it. The Keelan Cole touchdown, unfortunate.
Right.
The play at the end of the game, that's an absolute mess and inexcusable. But neither of those things happen if they gain 1 yard on the 4 and really 7 tries they had with all those timeouts. They just had to pick up 1 or 2 yards, and they couldn't.
I'm with you. It's crazy.
That to me is where the game was lost.
They have no control over anything that goes on offense. Zero. They look completely lost out there, drive in and drive out. If there's an anomaly and, they do what they did on the goal line last night in a vacuum, and it happens at some point in a normal NFL season, that shit happens. You get frazzled. Things come up. A guy subs in wrong. There's something gets smudged on your play sheet and you need to burn a timeout and figure shit out, right? That happens.
Sure.
But it's happened now for 15 weeks, Alex. This is
it happened on 4 plays in a row.
Correct. Exactly. It's completely inexcusable. And it's the stuff that we've talked about for 20 years in New England about these Patriots teams who they might not always have the best players. And there are certainly seasons where they did have the best players and they ran the table and won the championship, what have you. But this has always been their bread and butter. They're going to play smart. They're going to be smarter than you. They're not going to be highly penalized. And they're just going to play fundamentally sound football in all 3 phases of the game and burn you that way. And this is it's a disaster. They're not doing that at all anymore. And yesterday was, again, I feel like every single week now we're like, this was the tipping point. This is where it has to end. And
I'll tell you this, man.
It happened again last night.
If they top this, I don't know.
What do you do, though?
This has to be it. Right?
It's
this
a
has
disaster.
to be as ugly as it's going to get. And
right.
Maybe the silver lining in that is unless something, I really don't think it can get worse, especially because the teams they're playing, the 3 teams they're playing are really good, right? So, if they get their doors blown off, all right, fine, you got beat by a better team. And almost something incredibly good would have to happen. They would have to run the table and win a playoff game. Because otherwise, this is the defining moment of the 2022 Patriots. When we talk about the season, it's going to be this. It's going to be this game.
Right.
And, I was on with Greg Bedard last night on 98.5 The Sports Hub after the game. We kind of talked about it. How's that sitting down at One Patriots Place? This is I know. This is the game that defines the season. This is how your franchise is viewed right now. That absolute dumpster fire is, and look, some people this year, I get a lot on Twitter, oh, the Patriots are a laughing stock. And I've thought that was strong, right? They're not a real laughing stock. They're still competing for the playoff spot, and they've got young pieces in place. And yeah, the offense is goofy, but like, to me, a laughing stock is the Denver Broncos, right? Where we're trying to see if their quarterback's going to throw more touchdowns than he has bathrooms in his house. That's a laughing stock.
Or the Urban Meyer Jaguars.
Right,
that's
exactly.
a laughing stock. Right.
This is the first time I've really felt like I think people were down on the Patriots. I think people thought the Patriots weren't very good. Like, I'm talking national, big picture. I think that there were people who believed that, and maybe some to a justified degree, some maybe not. This is the first time I feel like people looking at the Patriots and laughing. Right?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Maybe the Bears game, maybe, but this is a whole nother level. Like, I just can't imagine this is sitting well down there.
Well, the Bears game too, they was back and forth with Zappe, and they weren't completing for first downs, right? But I mean, they weren't calling timeouts twice on a drive on the goal line in the middle of at the beginning of the second quarter, and they weren't allowing Chandler Jones to run over Mac Jones and laddering the ball for no reason when it's a tie game. Like,
right.
That there's a difference between getting blown up by a bad team on primetime and the complete mental instability of what they showed last night. So, not awful on offense. Two, I guess, bright spots on the offense.
Well, hang on. Before we do that, I got to get in a couple more things. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. Hit it. I was trying. Yeah, go.
The ball down the sideline. Nelson Aguilar needs to get his foot down. It's that simple. There was he had a ton of room to drag his toe, and you go back and watch it. There's very little effort to get his foot down. He looks like a college receiver, right?
Yeah.
That again is situational. It was a great throw. It's a great throw. That's probably Mac's best throw of the night.
Yes.
But that is it's situational football. It's something they work on a ton in the spring and summer and throughout the season. It's not like he was right there and there wasn't a ton of room. I mean, his foot swings 2-3 feet and he never brings it down.
Right.
You can't have that. You've got to make an effort on that play to get in bounds. I'm surprised that they even called it complete. I didn't think it was that close live.
No, I know.
And then, of course, the refs screwed them when they tried racing up to the line to snap it, and they held up the play for a substitution that never happened.
Yeah, that was nonsense.
The one other thing I want to add, because I see people talking about it in the chat, Bill Belichick's comments about Mac not being able to throw the ball far enough to run a Hail Mary. Two things on that. First off, let's assume he's talking about Mac's arm strength. I think that there's a chance where he isn't, but I'm just stick with me here. Let's assume he's talking about his arm strength. That's not true. It's on film. Go watch his college highlights. There's some plays from last year. We've seen it in practices, Mike. He can throw the ball 60 yards. Yep. He can do it. I don't know that he's getting into a 10-step drop and throwing it to the back of the end zone.
Right.
But he can get 5 yards back and throw the ball to the front of the end zone. He can do that. Now, maybe Bill meant he didn't think they could get it blocked. Because he says we can't. He doesn't say Mac. He says we couldn't throw it that far.
Right. Maybe
Bill doesn't think that they can get it blocked in time for the receivers to get down there. Well, the offensive line actually played well. There's your silver lining. Yeah. And, the Raiders are probably just blitzing 3. You should be able to block that, maybe 4. If they bring more, you turn it into a scramble drill play, which is what they ended up doing, but you're much further down the field, and maybe somebody has time to catch Chandler Jones when it goes ass up.
Right.
I was really surprised Bill said that, because he has to know how that's going to be perceived. And
yeah, I know.
For him to answer all those other questions with, we made a mistake on the play, we made a mistake on the play, and him to have, we need to coach better, play better, right in the back pocket, to go to that felt like a shot at his quarterback. And we've had the quarterback take some shots at the coaching staff the last few weeks, and now this is, again, where you go to, this isn't a team that's not talented or just, not good at. This is a team that is dysfunctional. That is what that comment
Right.
said to me, was dysfunction.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like you said, we've seen it at practice, and Max said it today on the radio. He said that he can throw more than 55 yards.
Yeah.
So again, whether it's a shot or not, I mean, again, you've taught me the lesson on this show day by day. Listen to what Bill Belichick says because he's telling you what he's thinking. Again, maybe that's just. I mean, he ended up they were on the 45 or the 50?
Yeah,
The
45.
it would have been
55. So he wouldn't need to throw the ball like 60 yards, basically.
Yeah, which I mean, I can see where his head's at to think that, but at the same time, why he said the word mistake like 10 times during his press conference, and he wouldn't even answer questions. It was just, we made a mistake. We made a mistake. Like you said, he wasn't giving into anything. And for that to be the one thing he sort of gave into, I agree, it's interesting. But they also should have just not even ran the play to begin with. Like they're running a draw play for a reason, and that's to hopefully give yourself a chance on something. And if it doesn't happen, go down and play for overtime. And
So,
not that
I'll just say that I actually am okay that they didn't kneel the ball down, and I'll tell you why.
me too. I agree.
The Raiders, first of all, they're choke artists. I don't know that we can
Right.
say that after it's a little hypocritical after what happened last night, but they're 4 blown leads at 13 plus points. They also just don't tackle well defensively. They're not a disciplined defense.
Right.
My guess is in their mind, hey, they're going to give us some cushion. Ramondre is going to get at least 10 yards downfield, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
Then all it takes is a face mask or a late hit or anything, something. Yeah. And remember, the game cannot end on a defensive penalty. So Ramondre runs for 10 yards. He's dragged down by the face mask. That's another 15. You're kicking a field goal to win the game. So I don't hate the idea of a draw. Personally, I think the most underused play in all of sports is the fake knee. But I'm not going to get picky here. But I don't mind that they didn't just sit on it. I don't hate that they ran the ball. It's what happened next that's the issue.
Yeah, of course. The fake knee, too, the tough part is if you have to make the refs aware that you're doing it because they can blow it dead before your knee actually touches, and then it screws the whole thing over. And whether your knee actually touches
happened to you? The way you're saying
no, it didn't happen. It didn't happen to me, but I've seen it happen before. Where it's like I don't know whether you tell the refs or you just make it obvious that you're not taking the knee. But again, the refs will blow the whistle to protect you, and so it's tough to.
Normally, what happens in that case, at least how I've experienced it, is before the game, each coach meets with the ref like separately. Right, these are 2 separate meetings, and kind of lets the ref know if they have any plays in the that they might call that are something where the refs need to be aware of. So the way I learned this was that one where I think it was the Rams like years ago, where they had a guy on one side of the field kind of looked like he was going to call a fair catch, but there's a guy on the other side of the field actually fielding the punt. Right, like I remember there's a story that like the special teams coach told the ref before the game, "Hey, don't blow it dead if you see us in this look. Like we're running a game here." Now, this is the 2022 Patriots.
Right.
Maybe they would have forgotten to tell the ref. Who knows?
Right, exactly.
There is generally a way you can inform ahead of time.
Right.
If you have something like that in your bag.
Right. But yeah, again, a disaster at the last play of the game. I did like how Jacoby reacted to it. In just saying that, he took the blame. He was trying to do too much. He was trying to be a hero. I didn't expect him to shy away from it. I mean, he's been a stand-up guy all season, and he's been great to us in the media, and he's a leader on this team. So it's tough to see that happen to him because he has been one of the constants on this team. He has been someone who, regardless of sort of the adversity they've had to fight through this year, he's always, the first guy to speak up on it. He's going to defend his teammates through and through. And again, he took the blame, and it's funny too. Just as far as taking the blame, I thought it was kind of hilarious, and I don't know if Mac would do this as far as continue to take shots in the media, but I wonder if it's a thing when he's taking the blame for not tackling Chandler Jones. I can't tell, and I can't read if that's him being like, look, I just need to be a leader and just take the blame anyway. Or if that's like the team and Belichick always tells the quarterback to take the blame regardless. And I am just going to, nail this into the ground every time I get the opportunity and kind of make them look foolish here too. But Mac takes the blame as well.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
In terms of Jacoby and Ramondre, they obviously both really stepped up there. I feel for Jacoby, man. He's the one guy that's been above this whole circus this whole time. Like, as much as this team has roller coastered, him and Ramondre have really been the two guys that have been steady. And look, neither of them were supposed to play in this game. They didn't practice all week. They come back. They made huge plays on what should have been the game-winning touchdown drive. Jacoby up the seam for, I think it was like 36 yards, and Ramondre had a 30-yard touchdown run.
Yep.
Like, they should have been the heroes of that game. And, like, Jacoby, he's been such a consummate professional since he got here.
Yeah, yeah.
A guy that's answered every question. And it has not been easy on him for a number of reasons. And for him to be as accountable as he's been, it sucks because he's a free agent. He doesn't project as a guy the Patriots are going to sign.
Nope.
This is probably what his Patriots legacy is going to be. And that's really unfortunate because he's a good player and just a great guy, a guy who gets it.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to somebody, he's almost going to be like the Leon Lett of this era, where Leon Lett was a great player. People don't realize that. Leon Lett was a really good player, but nobody talks about that when they talk about Leon Lett. Right. They talk about those two plays, the one in the Super Bowl and the one on Thanksgiving in the snow.
You really think this is going to be that detrimental to his legacy?
We'll see what happens.
I always go off the 24-hour rule and things like this, and even now, as bad as that was, I don't know. I think Jacoby's so much more than that.
I think he is too, and I hope he is, but this is an all-time screw-up ending. I mean, this is the one that every other one will be compared to. Every time a team is in position to do a late-game lateral play, this is the clip that will be shown on the broadcast. I mean, this is...
I know.
It's at a historic level. So I feel for him, and credit to him to standing up there and taking all the questions and all of that. Look, not what... It's not to excuse it. There's zero reason for him to throw that pass. Right. None.
No.
And he knows it.
Right. It was a bonehead play, and he gets it. And that's the hard part, too. Like, he knows, yeah.
And the real concern here to me is, so they called a draw. Called a straight draw, get what you can, right? Why did Ramondre Stevenson lateral, and why did Jacoby Myers lateral? Because they didn't trust the coaching staff in overtime. Because they wanted to end the game right then and there. And, all right, so when you actually do design those lateral plays, there's a reason you don't do that when it's tied. You do that when we see that play all the time when a team's losing, right? And how often does it turn into a touchdown the other way? And it always throws off the spread or the over-under or something, right? But the team that's running it is losing, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
This is exactly why you never see that play when a team is tied. And when you run that call, and there's really two kinds of lateral plays. Get what you can get. There's like a hook and ladder. It's like by design, and it's not the backyard BS play from longest yard, right? That's one thing. What that play is designed to do, the second one, is not let the game end. Once this clock runs out, unless we have scored or we have lost, it does not matter what happens. That is when you're supposed to run that call. And the problem is when you design that play, most of the time what teams do is they'll run it to one side, right? They focus all the action up one sideline. And the idea is you're going to suck the defense in. You leave one guy back on the other side. And at some point, once you have the defense sucked in enough, you're going to throw the ball back across the field. Hopefully that other guy's in a one-on-one. He can make one guy miss and score. That's how you draw it up. Doesn't always work. That's how you draw it up. What happened on that play and the reason it went so ass up. First off, that guy on the backside, almost always a receiver, running back, maybe a tight end. I think the Niners have George Kittle do it.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever seen it run with a quarterback, is that your mic glitching right now? I don't know if you can hear that.
Hi, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. It's a little staticky. Yeah, there you go.
I think okay.
Okay. The only time I've ever seen that run with a quarterback was it was actually Jalen Hurts in college at Alabama. Like that kind of guy, right? You're not Mac Jones. The other thing is that guy's supposed to be all the way on the other side of the field. So if he doesn't get the ball cleanly, there's time to recover because there's not a ton of defenders around. Instead, they threw it back to Mac Jones, who was in the middle of the field, not on the other side.
Right.
So I don't think it was designed to be a lateral. I think they freelanced
No, it
it.
wasn't.
But that to me is an indictment on the coaching staff.
It definitely wasn't it wasn't designed that way. And I see the chat too. My bad, guys. I'm sorry about that. I kind of screwed everyone's ears up by that. I put something on my microphone, so I apologize. But anyway, and the other thing, as far as throwing it back to Mac right there, if you look at the all 22, it might have been kind of tough for Jacoby to even see Chandler Jones because he was on the Raiders logo, the Raiders black logo in a black jersey,
Yeah.
and then stood up. And by the time he stands up, Jacoby, he definitely just thought Mac was there all alone and said, let's try something. But inexcusable because you're tied. It's not do or die. You have a chance, and they just couldn't get it done. It's tough. It's too bad. And it was a disaster. And go ahead.
The other thing we're not going to do, I'm just not going to let people do this right now. There's plenty of quarterback-related reasons to knock Mac Jones in this game. We are not going to put them losing the game on Mac Jones failing to tackle Chandler Jones.
Oh, no.
If you get, could he have made the tackle? Yeah, I guess. If you get to the point where your 6'3", 217-pound quarterback has to tackle a 6'6", 260-pound defensive end who happens to be one of the biggest athletic freaks in the league,
right?
You've lost. You've lost. The game should not come down to that. If you're letting the game come down to that, you deserve to lose. Right. So, yeah, sure, Mac Jones could have tried to tackle him. Mac Jones isn't a tackler. He's not somebody who works at tackling. I don't think that, I think he actually gave it the best effort he probably had. It didn't look
That's what I was just going to say. He didn't run away. I'm not exactly
sure what you want. What, you want him to square up like technique? And he's a quarterback. He's a quarterback. He's not like a big, shot. It's one thing if it's Ben Roethlisberger's as big as Chandler Jones. All
right, I have a good question.
There's plenty to pick on with Mac Jones in this game.
How many quarterbacks in the league make that tackle?
Not many. Not.
The only one that would have is Andrew Luck, and he's now retired.
Well, I mean, Ben, if we're going to go, Ben has.
Yeah, I guess.
But, I mean, I'm going, just think of, the big, moose-type quarterbacks, right? Who's just, a big dude.
Cam
the one I think of, Cam Newton is a guy who maybe makes that tackle. Well, just people will point out the fumble in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
but,
right.
In theory, yeah, Josh Allen in the chat. Josh Allen can probably make that tackle. Honestly, Jacoby Brissett is a big guy. There's not many. You count them on one hand. That's not, again, yeah, he could have made the tackle. Sure, right. Fine.
Does Zappy make the tackle?
No.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I saw that on Twitter.
People were saying that.
It's ridiculous.
Calm down, you idiot.
Zappy trends on Twitter every Patriots game, and it makes me want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, yeah, they lose on the lateral return. Justin Herbert doesn't make the tackle either. But, going off of just, I guess the good and the guys, Jacoby and Ramondre, and how they've been this year. Ramondre was really good yesterday outside that lateral. He rushed for 172 yards. He rushed for 9 yards a carry. He rushed for what could have been the game-winning touchdown. And he has more time to make up for his legacy, obviously. And his gaffe is not nearly as bad as Jacoby's. But it is too bad that the game that he had yesterday got overshadowed by that play at the end.
Yeah, I started the whole game. He looked good. He looked healthy. I thought it was a good mix with him and the rookies. I think he had a 66% usage rate.
Yep.
Solid. That's a solid number for him. But it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
The way this goes, when you're this late in the year and you're chasing wins for the playoffs, doesn't matter.
Yeah, tough. But so, yeah, I don't know. That's the offense. Do you have anything else? I do have one more thing on the offense before we switch over to the D. Two things, actually. I thought there was one play that I saw from Tyquan Thornton that I really liked because, and I talked about this last night on Patriots postgame, how the Patriots have sort of, at least an example is N'Keal Harry, where they draft the skill set and they don't necessarily draft the smart receiver, right? And not that N'Keal Harry is necessarily stupid, and I'm not going to go down that route, but you draft the athletic freak and you don't think about, how they play the game. There was one route from Tyquan yesterday. He ran a deep dig, and I thought it was, a perfect mix of, holy crap, this guy's super fast, and he knows how to read a defense because he ran the deep dig, and he breaks off his route, and, a receiver that's not as smart is just fast is just going to sprint across the formation and just continue to run no matter what. But he throttled down, and he read the zone perfectly, and he let Mac hit him as he throttled. And Mac knew it, and Taekwon knew it, and that's something that you never really saw from N'Keal Harry here. It's something that, as good as the receivers are here, it's like I, I thought it was good to see from Taekwon Thornton out of that play. He was targeted a little bit more yesterday, and it's kind of too bad that it's because other receivers were down and hurt, like Devontae, and I know Jacoby played, but trying to keep him out of it a little bit. But I thought that was good stuff from Taekwon Thornton, and they need to continue to get him more involved.
Yeah, I guess my silver lining is the offensive line looked good.
Yeah.
Trent Brown, now that he's healthy, he's over that flu. I thought he held up well. Connor McDermott actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
Still need tackles in the offseason. Like, it's just so tough because if they win that game, hey, the tackles played well. Like, here we go. And the Bengals are going to be on a backup pass rusher next week. And
right.
Maybe it's just the immediacy of it, but it's like, great. Tackles played well. Season's over.
Yeah, exactly. Before we talk defense, Alex, I want to talk about our friends at Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? You probably don't, as 80% of people who have subscriptions that they completely forget about. Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions when the actual total is closer to $200 or more. It could be an unused Amazon Prime account, a Hulu account, whatever that doesn't get streamed. But they're both draining that bank account of yours, and you could be wasting hundreds of dollars a month on subscriptions you don't even know about. Not me, though, because I use Rocket Money, which is formerly known as Truebill. The app shows you all your subscriptions in one place and then cancels whatever you still don't want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions now at rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Again, it's on the lower third there. You can see our screen if you're watching on YouTube. Rocketmoney.com/PatsBeat. Save hundreds of dollars to cancel those unnecessary subscriptions. All right, Alex, back to the Patriots' disaster of a game yesterday. The defense actually played relatively well. I thought the pass rush continued to get after Derek Carr basically until that last drive where they were essentially in prevent defense. Josh Uche gets another sack, continues to be a monster. Marcus Jones, Kyle Duggar. The Kyle Duggar play was unbelievable. The one thing I'll say about Marcus Jones and tying it into sort of that where they were from a pass defense and tying it into that last drive. I mean, they held Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in the league, to 4 receptions on 9 targets for just 28 yards. A lot of that had to do with Marcus Jones. He played really well on Devontae Adams yesterday.
Yeah, this was the second week in a row, too, because remember, he was mostly on DeAndre Hopkins last week after Jack Jones got hurt early in that game. So
right.
Marcus Jones might be the bright spot in this game. At a certain point, they're going to need to add bigger corners, and you saw it late in that game. 6'1" Keelan Cole beats him, 6'4" Matt Collins beats him. I'm surprised the Patriots didn't. The only corner the Patriots had active yesterday over 5'10" was Shaun Wade. He didn't really play.
Yeah,
I'm a little surprised the Raiders didn't go for those tight matchups and throw some of those jump balls as early as they did. Once they started doing that, it obviously started working, but Marcus Jones holding his own on the boundary. I still think he's a slot corner long term because teams are going to start testing him more on those jump balls and kind of testing his height, but the guy can cover.
I'm also the thing I'm worried about now is just the workload because
he only played 2 offensive snaps.
But he also played every special team snap and every defensive snap, which
yeah.
I know a lot of guys do anyway, but he played like 88 snaps yesterday, and I mean, he played well up until that last drive, and then he got kind of toasted a few times, so he's going to burn out at some point. And I know he's a rookie, and I know he should have fresh legs, but again, it kind of showed last night where, I mean, yeah, he was Keelan Cole out of bounds, yes, but he was still beat on the play, and he still was able to come down with the catch, so that's not a Marcus Jones thing. That's more of a we need to be able to get other guys the ball on offense and maybe bring this guy's workload down a little bit. But Kyle Duggar's pick 6, I thought was a turning point in the game, and it was just goes to show how good of a guy he really is and how much he prepares. I tweeted it that maybe they weren't prepping offense all week. They were strictly just prepping Derek Carr and reading him like a book and making sure that they could make a play like that. But no, I mean, Duggar read exactly the formation they were in. As soon as Carr grabbed the ball and went to throw it out there, Duggar knew exactly what was coming and he made the most of it. I thought that was a great play.
Yeah, and that's one of those ones that happens during the week, right? He saw something on film and in studying that he knew they're going to that play in that situation, and he gets the thumbs up from the coaching staff to kind of go hard after that look. And because the last thing you want is them to pump that screen and throw over the top, and he vacates the area, right? So shows the coaching staff's level of trust in him. Yeah, that was just an all around physical, mental, all of it, tremendous play.
Yeah. What do you take from the pass rush? I mentioned it a little bit, but what do you think about how they got after Carr?
Yeah, they were great. I mean, they were constantly forcing him out of the pocket. He was quick to throw the ball away, so that stunted a lot of drives. I thought Christian Barmore looked really good in his return, came up with half a sack. Obviously, Josh Uche had another big game, although went back and watched it. I don't know why. He wasn't on the field on that last play on the touchdown of Keelan Cole, which is annoying.
Yeah.
But pass rush was great. And if they're, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now, if they're going to win these last 3 games, it's the unit that's going to have to do it. It's the best unit on the team right now. I don't think there's another one that's close. They had a great performance and it wasn't enough to overcome, or it wasn't enough to overcome the rest of the roster. But hey, they're setting up big for 2023. So I guess there you go.
It's funny, Alex. A lot of times on this show, I'm able to, give you a softball and let you go, right? And that happened a lot with the offense tonight because there was such a mess. Defense played well, but I think we're just so down on this team that even when the defense was good, we don't even want to get into it because of the disaster that was. So
I mean, it's just, because you have to look at the big picture at this point.
I'm with you.
And what the defense did in this game has such little impact on what's going to happen in the offseason. I like this show to kind of be as neutral as possible and not get too high and not get too low, but just after a game like that, it's everything, not just the way they lost it, but that the big thing is that it probably kicks them out of the playoffs. That their playoff chances pretty much go up in smoke. It's just hard to sit here and say, yeah, well, hey, they pressured Derek Carr. When it's early in the year, it's super easy to do that because you're building something, right? So I was talking to Jim Murray about this last night, and that's probably what's more frustrating than anything else. When everybody was talking about the sky is falling back in July, and I remember Greg had that tweet that went around as the worst training camp practice he'd ever seen from an offense, and they don't end all this. And my pitch was basically, and I stand by this, it's not necessarily going to look perfect day one, especially with all these new pieces. It's a cumulative sport, right? You're building on what you did. You want to look better in December than you do in July. You want to see that progress. But what kills me is, and I talked about it earlier in the show, there's no progress here. They look the exact same now as they did in September and as they did in July. And that's what gets me is I think if they had progressed and grown like a normal team progresses and grows, they'd be sitting there I don't know that we're talking about division, but I think they're comfortably sitting in a playoff spot right now. I think we're talking more about seeding than anything else. But they just flatlined. They never built on anything.
Right.
They're making the same things they do well now. They're doing well in September. The same mistakes they were making in September, they're making now. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of evolution. Like, yeah, some of the philosophies changed. Like, they were obviously throwing the ball down the field a lot early in the season. They're not doing it now. They're playing more zone now than they were. But it's the alignment issues, the pre-snap issues, the penalties, all of it. It's the same as it's been.
And I have a hard time, and it's crazy. And you think about fire Belichick, and it's a lot, and it's steep because he has.
Yeah, I wouldn't go there.
But like, I do kind of get frustrated on just giving him credit for Super Bowls he won in the past. In the sense of, that's the reason why you should keep him now. Do I think the game has completely passed him by? No. And do I think that you're going to fire Bill Belichick and you're going to bring in an A-plus coach and an A-tier coach and be able to just kick this thing off in Dynasty 5.0 at this point? No. But something does have to give. Like, you can't just keep ramming your head against the wall and expecting things to change. And that's what they've done this year, and that's annoying, and that's not what you've seen from Belichick before. You remember in 2019, I think it was, when the offense wasn't great. And so they basically got together, they got McDaniels and Brady and Bill, and they said, we're going to change this thing up, and we're going to pound the rock. We're going to use Sony Michel with fresh legs as a rookie. We're going to build off that. We're going to run very dumbed down concepts all the way into the Super Bowl when they ran the same play 5 times in a row and rammed it in the end zone for a touchdown to win the Super Bowl. Like, they adjusted and they realized when things weren't working, we're going to change this. The Patriots haven't done that this year. Bill Belichick hasn't done that this year. And I don't know if it's to save Matt Patricia's face because he's a friend of his. I don't know if it's because he doesn't want to admit he's wrong when Tom Brady's not around. But again, I'm not saying Kraft should walk into Belichick's office tonight and say, you got to get out of here. But he has to go in there and say something has to change or else we need to make a change from the top.
Yeah, I think it's probably, again, I don't think Bill's job's necessarily in jeopardy directly, but I think that there's a situation where Kraft comes in and says, we made this massive investment in the offense. We spent these millions of dollars on Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, and we used a first-round pick on Mac Jones, right? We need those investments need to be in better hands. They need to be in the hands of somebody who's been in that spot before, working on offense first and foremost, but especially if they can get somebody who's worked with young quarterbacks and developed young quarterbacks. That means an offensive coordinator and a quarterback's coach, 2 separate. Like, you need both, right?
Right.
And I think that's where it begins, right? Again, Jim Murray I was on with last night, and I thought he made a good point that the word of the offseason is going to be reorganization. That's how they'll spin it, right?
Yep.
You can't run it back. You can't run it back. And
that's when it becomes a fireable offense.
Right. The defenses look good. We'll see Gerard Mayo should get a head coaching job. Then again, he should have gotten a head coaching job the last 2 years. So maybe they luck out. I don't want to say luck out because it's unfortunate for Gerard, but you know what I mean. Maybe 31 other teams make the same mistake again. But I
Better
think
way to put it.
People say, how can you give Bill so much rope? Look at this. This is exactly how much rope winning 6 Super Bowls and being the most dominant coach in the history of the game buys you. Right? Is to this point.
Exactly.
If he's not willing to change it, that to me is the last straw. But I think he's earned the right, and I'm not saying he's earned the right this year. He's earned the right over the last, 30 years. He's earned the right to plug in a guy who actually knows offense like he should have done last year and see what that looks like. Because the reality is, if it's really not going to work, you need to hit the reset button after 2023 anyway, because you need to go back into that quarterback carousel. You might as well do the coach at the same time, right? You want to tie the coach and quarterback together. So I don't think Bill's cooked just yet, but if their offensive coaching staff looks the same way it does at this time, when we get to May, or forget May, when we get to March, and it looks the same way, that's a really rough look.
Right. And that's the thing that's going to change it all. And it's tough, again, like you said, if it happens in March, what do you do? Because at that point, the coaching carousel is over.
So let me say this. Sorry, let me just say this. I'll remind everybody it could happen and we won't know. So, and Mike, we've talked about this before, right? There's a world where Matt Patricia doesn't get fired. They just kick him back upstairs and he's the senior advisor of whatever. And they hire somebody as an offensive consultant, right? So just because Matt Patricia doesn't get fired doesn't mean that,
he didn't get fired.
Right, exactly. So it's more about who they hire.
He's going to have a job
kicking him out of the building. I still think they should let him go all the way just because the PR element, just the visual of him still being employed here in whatever regard, I think is a rough look. And they kind of need to reel the fans back in. But there is a chance that he just gets moved back upstairs and we don't really know what the structure is until we get to, I forget if it's the first day camp or the last day camp, whenever it is, and they release all the coaching titles.
Right. Well, if he does get let go, he should head to LinkedIn.
There you go.
Look for a job. The Patriots can post the Patriots can post the offensive coordinator job using linkedin.com/beat. Because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. We use LinkedIn Jobs here at CLNS Media. We can't recommend it enough. We highly recommend the Patriots use it to post that godforsaken offensive coordinator job come the end of this season. It's super easy to post your job, then add your listing and post hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. As we enter the end of 2022, now's the perfect time to add the right team member to end the year strong. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, I guess we should probably put a bow on this thing, Alex. I know it's going to be tough too, but at the end of the day, it's funny because the Patriots are on to Cincinnati, and that's sort of been a calling card here in the New England area. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happened on the field. A loss is a loss. It's a tough way to do it, but I'm surprised, and it was nice, I guess, to hear that. And you don't hear this too much, but Bill Belichick seemed to have sort of rallied the guys in the locker room after the game. There was some things came out that he was basically like, stick together, don't let this rip you apart. And he could have easily went in there and chewed the guys out because he's Bill Belichick and he knows all. And it was a really stupid mistake, and plenty of stupid mistakes throughout the game cost them in this one, but he didn't. They're going to rally, so we'll see what happens. Do you think they have any shot at running the table and realistically making the playoffs here, Alex? Because Cincinnati's won 6 in a row, and they're 10-4.
Yeah, they're the hottest team in football. I just, can they steal one of these? Sure. If the pass rush really gets going and maybe they get some help from the weather, it's 2 games at home and then 1 in Buffalo. And for all the time we spent last week talking about how the Dolphins don't like to play in the cold, I think we forget the Bills also don't like to play in the cold. Right. Could they steal 1? Sure. Can they get 2? Maybe. If the Bills have everything locked up week 18, maybe they just – it's Barkley, right? Maybe they just trot out Matt Barkley and Patriots tee off on him.
No, Case Keenum. Case Keenum now.
Case Keenum, same thing. Did you see that? Who was it? I think it was Gumbel on CBS kept saying Mitchell Trubisky instead of Sam Darnold. And there was an article today that nobody corrected him, and all the replies were just like, "What's there to correct?"
I didn't see that, but that's hilarious.
So, whoever it is, Chase Daniel out there for the Bills. Right. Maybe if it's week 18 and it's all sewn up, maybe the Bills kind of sit that one out. But to run the table against these teams, I think they have the talent to do it. I'll say that. I think they have the talent to do it. I just don't think that they can put out the execution, the performance that's needed to that consistently.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be tough. So that's that. Patriots lose to the Raiders 30-24. Let's touch on a quick NFL news. We'll do some NFL news quickly and then touch on Monday Night Football tonight, and then we'll get out of here. Jalen Hurts, probably the leading candidate to win the NFL MVP yesterday, sprained his shoulder. Looks like he's going to be out for several weeks. It kind of trickled in strangely. I don't know if you were on Twitter this afternoon, but there were some basically random Twitter accounts kept tweeting that Jalen Hurts broke his collarbone, going to miss the rest of the regular season. And so then rumors started to swirl. Some sports books started to change the odds, and it swung really fast to Cowboys being like a 4 or 5 point favorite. So that's when people were like, oh, this might be real. And then finally Adam Schefter confirmed it that sprained shoulder, Jalen Hurts going to miss at least probably this week. Gardner Minshew is going to be thrust in there. So 13-1, 14-1 Eagles now lose their 13-1 Eagles lose their MVP quarterback. What do you make of it? Can they still, continue to shine on with Gardner Minshew? Well, shout out Mike Leach, Gardner Minshew. Washington State.
That's a good point. Yeah. You know me, I like to use precedent, right? I like to go back and see what's happened in history and can we line it up.
So I know exactly what you're going to say.
If only there was an example of the Philadelphia Eagles in the second week of December losing their starting MVP candidate quarterback as they're in first place in the NFC. Hey, if there's any good news to this, Patriots are going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now this has gone historically. We won't talk about what happens after they get it. No, I really like Gardner Minshew. I do. I think that offense is tremendously talented. And the NFC kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of sucks. So they're not as good, It's a
Right.
step back, but I don't think it necessarily overly changes their outlook, right? It's them,
Right.
the Niners right now. I don't care that they came back. The Vikings look like frauds. I don't buy the Cowboys, right? I wasn't alive in 1992, so I don't have that thing ingrained in me, right? Like I just
Right.
see the Cowboys, I think chokers. Honestly, the like sleeper team that scares me in the NFC is Tampa. And I
It's
know
just,
that
but
they
they
played
don't because they're so
so
bad.
yeah.
They're so
I'm
bad.
not I'll never bet against Tom Brady. I'll never count
But what
Tom
they're
Brady out.
going to do, what's going to happen, and it's lining up this way, is they're going to win that division at 7-10. They're going to host a home
Exactly.
playoff game against Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions,
Yeah.
and then they're going to somehow end up in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
But
I'm saying like who else really in the NFC, right? So it's the Eagles 1, the Niners 2.
Dallas, I guess. I know you already mentioned them. They don't
I
really
would
worry
put
you.
them like on that same level as Tampa. I
Minnesota
would.
knows how to win close games.
No. That
All
team's
of a
going to
sudden,
lose. That team's going to lose in the first. They're going to be up 15, 20 points in that first round game and then lose.
that kind of hurt that I just had to say that Kirk Cousins wins close games. That one
Yeah,
hurt
yeah.
a little bit.
I'm not buying it. Not buying
Yeah.
it. So
What did you make of
like I wanted to buy Seattle early in the season. That felt like
right?
a really fun team that was doing some crucial things really well, but they've come back down to earth. They're
Yeah.
back to more or less what they should be.
What did you make of? I know you mentioned it with the Vikings, but Matt Ryan losing by
Yeah,
25 in a Super Bowl, and then 3 years later, whatever it is, blowing a
talk
33
about a
point lead.
guy whose legacy is completely undone by like a single moment, right?
I know.
The guy won an MVP. Like he's a
Mhm.
good quarterback. He's one of the better quarterbacks of his era. But he blew the biggest lead in NFL history and the biggest lead in Super Bowl history. And that's going to be the first thing that gets brought up when we talk about Matt Ryan. There's going to be some freak thing. Like he's going to be the 283rd player ever inducted in the NFL Hall of Fame or something like that. Where like he'll get that
330th now.
far. Right. He'll get that far and it just won't matter. Right. And that's
Right.
still going to be the defining characteristic. So it's unfortunate, but somebody's got to be the biggest choking QB. Somebody like
Well,
somebody has to
it's
be by default.
right. It's tough though because as much as Matt Ryan has sort of middled here a little bit towards the end of his career, the 28-3 game was a Kyle Shanahan thing, and Kyle Shanahan's redeemed himself a little bit anyway. He's a good coach. You've sort of turned the
Yeah, I hate. He's
you
starting to
have
grow on me, and I hate that.
yeah.
But he is.
But so the reason that Matt Ryan lost that Super Bowl was because Kyle Shanahan refused to run the football up 25 points in the second half, and then Matt Ryan builds a 33-point lead, but then turns to the sideline and has Jeff Saturday in a headset and Parks Frazier calling plays for him, where I don't even know how they managed to do that because they ran the ball a little bit with Deion Jackson, but Jonathan Taylor ends up leaving the game. But again, it's like, is it on Matt Ryan a little bit? Sure, because you got to be able to rally the troops if you're that good of a quarterback and put some points on the board. But I mean, the coaching staffs around him in both of those comebacks is piss poor.
Yeah, that's
So,
fair.
yeah. So again, that's that. Last thing, let's do Monday Night Football tonight. I need to pull up ESPN for the spread because the Rams are at the Packers. Baker Mayfield's Los Angeles Rams now. He had a long week to get in there in the lab with Van Jefferson and those guys after the miraculous Thursday Night Football game a few weeks ago, going to Aaron Rodgers' Packers. The Packers are 7.5-point favorites despite being 5-8. Rams 4-9. Have a little juice with Baker. At Lambeau, I like Baker because I just like Baker anyway, so I like the 7.5 points. But what do you think of this game?
I'm a little back and forth on this. On one hand, I think it's a letdown spot for the Rams, right? You have that great moment, and I think that there was some unfamiliarity that helped. Now
Totally.
he's run it, and it's like, I think there was just that whole thing was momentum driven a couple weeks ago, adrenaline driven, all that, right? At the same time, Aaron Rodgers is very clearly checked out. Like, I just think he's done.
Yeah.
So I'll go Packers at Lambeau. I'll go with the home team. I'll default to the home team.
All right. Barth gets the home team. Packers minus 7.5. I'll take Baker one more time.
Oh wait, it was
808 Chase.
Packers minus 7.5. I'll take. You know what? I'll take the Rams to cover. I'll take the Packers to win, but I'll take the Rams. I think it's a close game ultimately, but
All
I
right.
think the Packers pull it out.
All right. Sounds good. So we're on the same side for the spread, but I got, Rams to win. Rams money line. Let's see what happens. Let's see what Bacon get cooking. Me and Alex will be back on Patriots Beat later on this week to preview the Patriots Christmas Eve matchup against the Bengals. Again, Patriots lose 30-24 in dramatic fashion against the Raiders. Josh McDaniels. We didn't even touch on Josh McDaniels this entire. I don't think we said his name once in this podcast because there were so many more storylines surrounding this awful game that we didn't even get to touch on Josh. But again, Patriots lose to Josh McDaniels Raiders 30-24. Slowly but surely continue to fall out of the playoff spot. Me and Alex will be back on Thursday to preview Patriots versus Bengals coming up Saturday on Christmas Eve. Until then, follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Read his stuff over at 985thesportshub.com. He's doing a lot of radio work over there as well lately, doing some fill-in over the holidays, so make sure you check that out. Tune your radio dials to it. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick. Read my stuff at CLNS Media. I put out plenty of post-game coverage there today, so go on and check that out. Again, until later on the